So why is cannabis therapeutic? Welcome to a basic overview of the endocannabinoid system. My name is Nishi Whiteley, and I'm the curator of the website My Chronic Relief. Our point is to bridge the gap between the vast amount of science that exists on cannabis and the endocannabinoid system and practical application of this knowledge. So for the last 4 years, I've been writing a book on this topic, and we've decided to self-publish, and hopefully sometime in March, the book will be available. If you wouldn't mind, thank you. So the short answer, why is cannabis therapeutic? It works, right? So cannabinoids are a class of chemicals that exist primarily in the cannabis plant. Just so happens that these chemicals mimic the endocannabinoids that live in our bodies. These are cell protectants, pain relievers, neuroprotectants, natural relaxers, anti-inflammatories, bone stimulants, cancer fighters, and sedatives. So if you want a quick thing. Dr. Ethan Russo is one of our top cannabis science experts in this country. He says cannabis is the single most versatile herbal remedy and the most useful plant on earth. No other single plant contains as wide a range of medically active herbal constituents. This is big. We can't really have a conversation about the endocannabinoid system without having a conversation about cannabis. It is because of cannabis and the research to understand how and why THC works in the brain that we actually discovered the endocannabinoid system. Thank you. So the endocannabinoid system is our innate harm reduction system. Just like we have the cardiovascular system that pumps our blood, we have this endocannabinoid system that always is bringing the body back into a state of balance. So if it's environment, lifestyle, stress, or injury, that throws the body out of balance, the endocannabinoid system was designed to help you come back to balance, health, or homeostasis. So the system includes endocannabinoids. We have 2-arachidonyl glycerol. That's a big mouthful, isn't it? 2-AG. And then we have N-arachidonyl ethanolamine or ethanolamine, depending on how you want to say it. It's better known as anandamide or the bliss molecule. There may be other endocannabinoids that are proved by science, but this is what we're going to focus on today. Then we have cannabinoid receptors. We have the CB1 and the CB2, and then there are other postulated receptors that science is trying to sort out. Are they really cannabinoid receptors or not? And then we have synthesizing hormones. So these hormones initiate the production of the endocannabinoids in your body. So what is different, I should back up. Endocannabinoids are actually considered neurotransmitters. You've probably heard of them: serotonin, acetylcholine, GABA, dopamine. These are critical to our health. They impact almost every facet of our life. Endocannabinoids are also neurotransmitters. But what separates them from the rest of the pack is that they aren't constantly floating in your body. They're sort of like Netflix on demand, so to speak. So when your body really needs them, the synthesizing hormones say, hey guys, we need you, and the endocannabinoids are created. When they've done the work that they needed to do, then enzymes, you see the FA and MAGL, then those are going to degrade the endocannabinoids, and the work has been done. So let's hit the slide. So the role of the endocannabinoid system is to regulate, modulate, or play a role in every major biological function in the body. This is huge. Pain control, mood, immune function, suckling and newborn, appetite, temperature regulation, memory, inflammation, neuroprotection, reward mechanisms. These are just a few of the things that the endocannabinoid system helps manage for each of us. So you can hit the slide. I love this slide from Phytex. Unfortunately, you cannot see their copyright, but this is by Phytex, which is a company where Dr. Ethan Russo, one of our top cannabis scientists, is working. And what they're trying to do is come up with both over-the-counter and prescription-based medicines that can stimulate the endocannabinoid system to improve the human experience. So what you see here is that this is a bunch of fancy medical stuff, but I think you get the point that the endocannabinoid system is throughout the entire body. It's in the brain, the central nervous system, it's in your fat tissue, your bone, your muscles, your liver, your pancreas, your digestive system, your reproductive organs. It's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. Let's click it. Thank you. So when we look at the two endocannabinoids, we have anandamide, which is probably more important for managing pain, and then 2-HG is probably more important in neuroprotection. But what's interesting about both of them is that they work through the CB receptors. They're also thought to work with a variety of other receptors and non-receptor pathways, which is really interesting to people that are trying to solve the problem of how a disease originates and then how to help somebody manage it or treat it. So they operate independently, and they can work at the same time in the cell, tissue, or system of the body, which I think is really fascinating, especially if you're in the business of drug development. Let's go to the next slide. So endocannabinoids are innate. They've been around 600 million years. Oddly enough, this thing we call the cannabis plant has been hanging out for about 37 million years. So that's a long time for those two things to coexist. And then we have our synthetic cannabinoids, which have been around for about 20 years. As you all know, cannabis is a Schedule I drug. Boo. And synthetic cannabinoids are not. They happen to sit on the Schedule III list, which is the same schedule as Vicodin. Combined, the study of each of these cannabinoids and our endocannabinoid system, I think are really, truly one of the most interesting parts of medical science to date. The research in this field has the potential to greatly improve public health and to help us understand the origin of many not very well understood diseases, and then to give people the relief that they deserve and desire. So cannabinoid receptors, as we said earlier, you can see these little dots, and they represent all the places that these receptors live. So what is a receptor? Well, if you can imagine the whole lock and key concept that you see here, cannabinoids, regardless of whether they are phyto, endo, or synthetic, are, let's say you have a cannabinoid here and you've got a receptor here. Well, this receptor is sitting on the outside of a cell. It receives the cannabinoid, unlocks it, and then the cannabinoid gets to go inside the cell. Said another way, the receptor is the catcher's mitt, the cannabinoid is the ball, and once it catches the ball, it gets to go inside and do its job. So let's go to the next slide. Thank you. So the CB1 and the CB2 receptors are involved in different functions of the body. So I mentioned earlier that the way we discovered this endocannabinoid system is through researching how and why THC works in the brain. So CB1 was the first receptor that was actually identified, and it is most predominant in the brain, but it exists throughout the entire central nervous system. THC loves this receptor. This is also the receptor that anandamide, the bliss molecule, favors and activates. So it's in I don't want to say in charge of, but plays a major role with appetite, immune function, muscle control, pain, intraocular pressure. That's why cannabis is such an effective agent for people with glaucoma. Cognition, reward mechanisms, temperature control, emesis, which is nausea and vomiting, extinction of fear memory. This is why we have to do more research for veterans, because this is a critical piece for treating PTSD effectively. And then CB1 receptor also helps with the recovery of the body after a flight or fight response. So when you've just expended a ton of adrenaline, your body is designed, again, to come back into balance. But if you're constantly in that state of fight or flight, you're going to run out of enough adrenaline. Well, if that is the situation, then the CB1 receptor is going to be one of the things that helps you come back into balance. And then the other thing that it does is plasticity, the ability for the brain to continue to grow and learn and be healthy, and neuroprotection. So the CB2 receptor is favored by 2-AG, a different endocannabinoid, and it's found predominantly in immune cells. It was first discovered in the macrophage, and since then we know it's in the spleen and natural killer cells as well as other places. And it's critically important in cell proliferation, which, as we all know, is going to yield a lot of great information and insights for how to prevent and treat cancer. Inflammation, pain regulation, bone growth, and our stress response and neuroprotection are also functions of the CB2 receptor. So what I think is very interesting here is that these two receptors actually share roles in pain, neuroprotection, inflammation, and the general immune response. Let's flip to the next slide.
I have a question on this one. You have THC affinity and you have a down arrow.
So THC loves the CB1 receptor. It sort of kind of likes the CB2 receptor. Big difference between love and like.
Okay.
Does that make sense? All right. So put simply, the endocannabinoid system is regulating our eating, sleeping, relaxing, forgetting, and protecting. So Dr. Raphael Mechoulam is the Israeli scientist that is first responsible for identifying the CB1 receptor. He and his partner, I'm afraid I'm going to not do his name justice, but it deserves mentioning. Guyoni, anybody able to correct me?
We wouldn't even know.
All right. So these two gentlemen are the ones who really have created this field of cannabinoid science or cannabis-based science. And he says there is barely a biological, physiological system in our bodies which the endocannabinoids do not participate. All right, so we could sit here and talk about how endocannabinoids play a role in every single disease, but we'd still be here this time next year and we wouldn't even be a quarter of the way through. So it's a lot easier to talk about what are the common denominators of disease. Quite simply, they are inflammation, oxidation, and pain. Well, inflammation and oxidation are two things that are going to happen through the aging process. It's just part of being human. Inflammation is a very important part of the body's healing process. You stub your toe, well, it's probably going to be inflamed, and that's how your body is going to help you heal the toe. But if you have chronic inflammation over a long period of time that you're not able to address, then that's not very good. It can be a silent killer. We're talking about inflammation in the likes of Alzheimer's disease or arthritis. What happens is that usually sneaks up on people, and then oftentimes people feel like, I caught this too late. which now with the discovery of the endocannabinoid system may not be too late. So genetics, lifestyle, stress, environment, injury, all of these things play a major role in inflammation. Cannabinoids help regulate and stimulate the chemical ballet which goes on in your body, which is required to manage inflammation. And interesting to me, the CD1 and 2 are thought to have an equal role in managing inflammation. Oxidation is probably occurring right now in everyone's body. It's just a natural process of being human. So when the cell creates energy, a waste byproduct is called a free radical. Well, if antioxidants are what sort of tame the free radicals, if you will, and if your body doesn't have enough antioxidants in it, then you are going to age much more quickly than what our bodies were designed to do. So it's just like when you cut an apple, you don't put some lemon on it, what happens to the apple? It turns brown. Same thing if let's say that you have a fence on your 700 acres and you don't paint the fence. Well, it's going to start to rust. It's oxidizing and it's slowly going to degrade over time. Well, this is the same concept with oxidation. And in this particular case, cannabinoids act as antioxidants. So they're the paint to your rusting fence, the lemon to your browning apple, so to speak. And then pain is I don't think it's a natural process of being human. It's telling you that there's something wrong. It's trying to get your attention. And all of us have pain that we're like, it's going to go away, it's going to go away. And then you have that pain where, it really didn't go away. And you're like, ooh, I better pay attention. So when pain continues for a long period of time, it actually can change your chemistry. It can usurp neurotransmitters that are required for your health and your happiness, and it will use them at too fast a rate, and then it changes your chemistry, and then it changes your health. So acute, chronic, and neuropathic pain are three very different types of pain. And how the body, how they're created, and then how the body manages them are very different. So the chemical pathways for how we naturally address those types of pain through the endocannabinoids are different. But cannabinoids are very effective in all three of these types of pain. And they work through very different mechanisms to help reduce pain in the body. I do want to point out that in the case of neuropathic pain, most people who suffer from that, neuropathic pain is common in people who suffer from diabetes and who have gone through some sort of chemo or radiation. And it's a deep pain, it's an itch you can't scratch, it's a whole bunch of different things, little pinpricks all at the same time, and it is extremely uncomfortable and maddening. Research is showing that the vast majority of people who have that type of pain are grossly underserved by pharmaceuticals. Yet, cannabinoids are very, very effective and in most cases should probably be a first-line treatment for neuropathic pain. Let's go to the next slide. So what can we do to stimulate our endocannabinoid system? Well, there are some fairly easy and inexpensive things that we can do. The one no one here probably wants to do is exercise. Running, yoga, whatever it is you like to do that you consider exercise stimulates your endocannabinoid system. The runner's high, everybody's probably heard of that. That is an infusion of anandamide in your body, tickling your CD1 receptors and making you feel good. eat essential fatty acids. The endocannabinoids in your body have a precursor or a building block, chemical building block. Just so happens they're essential fatty acids. By eating hemp, seeds or oil, or other quality omega-3 fatty acids, chia or fish oil, you are naturally boosting your endocannabinoid system. And then of course you can consume cannabinoids, phyto or synthetic. Let's go to the next. So I want to go just a little bit deeper for a minute about cannabinoids, and one of the reasons that it is so safe to stimulate the endocannabinoid system with cannabinoids, be they from the cannabis plant or from a synthetic source, is that there are very few receptors in the part of your brain that control your breathing or your heart rate. This is not the same with opiates, and I'm sure that most of you are aware that we have a very scary rise for people who are dying as a result of accidental overdose on opiates. The reason that's happening is because there's a large concentration of opiate receptors in the part of the brain that control heartbeat and breathing. People aren't trying to kill themselves, they're just trying to feel better. And in so doing, they fall asleep and never wake up, which isn't the case with cannabis. There have been no known deaths associated with the overconsumption of cannabis. It is very low toxicity. It is a safer product than aspirin. Safer product than aspirin. And there are no lasting side effects. So once the cannabis gets out of somebody's body, it's out of their body. Unlike chemo, when it's in your body, it actually can change your immune system. You can have permanent liver damage or live with neuropathic pain for the rest of your life. But cannabis doesn't do that. And on top of all of that good news, there is no known lethal dose. So I had a conversation with Dr. Donald Abrams, who is a leading oncologist in the cannabis space, and he's a nationally renowned AIDS specialist. So Dr. Abrams exactly asked him, how much cannabis does someone need to inhale or ingest before they die? And he said, no one really knows, but there is this number floating around that says you would have to have 800 cannabis cigarettes in a 15-minute period. That's not humanly possible. I don't care how you look at it, it can't be done. So let's go to the next slide. So who's going to benefit from stimulating the endocannabinoid system? Well, at least 161 million people. So this is a list of our country's top chronic ailments. Chronic pain, 100 million. Diabetes, 25.8 million. Heart disease, 16.3 million. Stroke, 7 million. Cancer, 11.9 million. That is a lot of people whose lives could be improved by stimulating their endocannabinoid system. So we're going to talk about, I just want to highlight a couple of things because we don't have too much more time, but cancer is something that I'm quite sure has touched the lives of every person in this room. So the American Cancer Society projects that half of all American men and a third of all American women will get cancer in their lifetime. I don't know about you, but I don't want any part of that. So, Drs. Jose Guindon, I hope I said that right, and Andrea Homan put forth a paper that was published in the 2011 Journal of Pharmacology. And this is what they say about the ECS in cannabis. The dysregulation of the ECS may promote cancer by fostering a physiological condition that allows cancer cells to proliferate, migrate, and grow. This is one of the reasons that we have to to do our research on cannabis oil and its ability to stop this from happening. Cannabinoids are strong anti-cancer agents. They inhibit tumor growth in animals and laboratory models by preventing something called angiogenesis. Angiogenesis is the creation of new blood cells. So generally speaking, our body isn't making us new blood cells. It happens when we are growing a baby and when we have a severe injury and when tumors grow. So a tumor cannot live if we cut off its blood supply, and that's what cannabinoids do. Secondly, cannabinoids selectively kill or create apoptosis in the cancer cell. Not in all cancer cells, it may, but science hasn't proven that out yet. But what we believe probably is a pretty good fit is in the areas of brain, breast, colon, skin, lung, liver, and prostate cancers. That's a pretty good start, right? And on top of all that, cannabinoids are a non-toxic way to treat cancer with a very favorable safety profile. Let's look at the next one. So, neurodegenerative disorders, we're talking about Alzheimer's disease, ALS, Huntington's, MS, Parkinson's. These are diseases of the brain. And every single one of these, I would consider that pharmaceutical treatment and modern medicine fails them miserably. There is not a drug out there that can stop the progression of Alzheimer's. Just so happens that cannabinoids from the cannabis plant, however, are showing to be able to dissolve amyloid plaques, which are the hallmark of the Alzheimer's disease. In the case of ALS, there's no treatment for ALS. It is a miserable death. Miserable. Just so happens that cannabis can help address those symptoms. And there is some science that is beginning to indicate that it can slow and in some cases reverse the progression of the disease, which deserves a significant amount of research attention. So all of these diseases are grossly underserved by modern medicine. Cannabinoids are powerful neuroprotectants, and they work on many different channels to address the disease. You know, when we talk about a pharmaceutical, usually it's addressing one thing, right? It's going to take away your pain or make you sleep well or reduce inflammation or spasticity. But cannabinoids can do all of those things at one time. That's why it's very effective at working with your endocannabinoid system for these neurodegenerative disorders. It also, this is probably the best part, it has the ability to be selective on how to target parts of the brain and the body where the attention is most needed. And then another thing that's very exciting is for the longest time we thought that once brain cells were gone, they were gone. And while that is true, we now know that new ones can actually be grown, and cannabinoids support that. Let's go to the next slide. So there are many other conditions. Actually, the list of conditions where cannabinoids should not be used is far shorter than where they should be. And just to cover a couple, people who suffer from arthritis will find that they have reduced pain, lower inflammation, better sleep. With Crohn's, it's going to help manage motility and improve absorption. Depression improves mood, reduces anxiety. Drug addiction, who would have ever thought? There is a growing body of evidence that things like fibromyalgia and migraine and a variety of other very hard to treat autoimmune disorders are possibly I don't want to say dysregulation, but they could be attributed to not having enough cannabinoid receptors in the body. So if you don't have a strong enough endocannabinoid system, then it's possible that some of these ailments, you may experience some of these ailments. And in those cases, we have found that cannabinoids are a highly effective treatment. Let's go to the next slide. So just to summarize what we said here today about the endocannabinoid system is that this is one of the most exciting and underappreciated developments in biological sciences in recent times. And I would argue that Raphael Mechoulam and his partner deserve a Nobel Prize for this. So in understanding our endocannabinoid system, we have the opportunity to be able to improve human health and to transform truly the way we understand disease, treat it, and even prevent it.
Thank you.